Okay, so this is the story of how I met your mum. It was 2010, exactly 10 years ago. So one afternoon, I think it was a Friday or a Saturday night, I was meeting up with my friend Jake during the day. He was going to a concert, a Tame Impala concert at the Gaelic Club in Sydney in Surrey Hills that night. So we thought we'd have a bit of a day drink. I wasn't going to the concert. I just wanted to have a day drink. So I met up with Jake and we just started drinking. One beer turned into 2, turned into 10, turned into 15. Now it's night time and the concert's about to start. And Jakey's like, I don't have tickets. I was just going to buy them at the door. I'm like, fuck it then. I'll come watch Tame Impala. I didn't even know who the fuck that was. To be honest with you, I still don't know who the fuck Tame Impala is. So we stumble up to the Gaelic Club and Jakey boy goes to buy tickets and they're completely sold out. You can't buy a fucking ticket at all. So we're at the front and we're like, let's try and sort of fucking sneak in. Let's at least line up and see if we can't work out something with the bouncer. Anyway, I get to the front of the line and the bouncer sort of looks away for a second and I just walk straight in. I get into the concert. Jake tries to do the same thing. He gets seen. He's not allowed into the concert. So I'm in the concert. I don't even know who the fuck it is. I don't really care. But I stay in the concert for like half an hour or so just to rub a little bit of salt into the wounds of Jakey boy, you know? But after a little while, I get bored as fuck and I go, I'm going to try and sneak Jake in. So I go to the front door and I'm like, Jake, come here. And I try and drag him through. As I try and drag him through, I get pushed out. So we're both out now. So we're like, fuck it, let's just go down to Madison's. The Madison Hotel, it's like 3 doors down from the Gaelic Club in Sydney, near Central Station. None of these places are going to exist by the time you go searching for them, so I'm just telling you the names. So we walk into Madison's and start drinking, and we are both lit. I am very, very, very drunk. I can't remember many of the details of what happened inside. I was very drunk. But I look over towards the pool table, and there's a girl sitting on a stool just to the side of the table, and I looked at her, and this is the God's honest truth. It was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen in my entire life. And this is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but she had this white sort of glowing light around her. It was the weirdest thing ever. She was like glowing. And so in my drunken haze, I'm like, I have to speak to this girl. I have to. So I walked over to her, and these are the first words I ever said to your mum. I said, you are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen in my entire life. And she said, I'm Indian. I'll have to be married in a year. And I said to her, I will marry you right now. I will marry you this second. And I was serious too. So we hang out at this bar for the rest of the night. I'm just acting like a complete jerk. In a charming way, I suppose. I can't remember too much of what I was doing. I was just trying to impress your mum a little bit. Apparently, I asked one of the friends she was hanging out with, who incidentally was her ex-boyfriend as well. I asked him for a cigarette and he said no. So I flicked a dollar coin at his chest. I can't remember doing that. Your mum told me that. So anyway, we're in there all night. I'm hitting on your mum like crazy. I'm just calling her the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. I said I'll marry her. I think I said it like 15 times. And then the pub's closing and everyone has to leave. And so me and your mum are standing outside and I'm like, can I have your number? And then in my drunken head, I remembered that I had a shitty $50 Nokia phone that had the screen smashed and I'd lost the buttons. And at that point, I was answering my phone with a broken toothpick. Whenever I wanted to type a message, I would have to find a toothpick, break it in half, and start typing the message. Just because I refused to throw that phone away until it was absolutely done. So I'm like, I can't pull this phone out in front of her. There's no fucking way. Yeah, it might be funny to my friends, but this is not the point to pull it out and test those waters. So I'm like, I'll give you my number. Will you take my number? And she said, yeah. So I gave her my number and she walked off and I walked off. Me and Jake went somewhere else to get drunker, and that was the end of it. Then about 6 weeks later, it was a sort of last-minute spur-of-the-moment thing. I decided to go on holiday for 3 months. Decided to go to the US with one of my mates. But during that trip, me and your Uncle Cal, that's who I went on the trip with. We would sit there every night just drinking and talking and fucking figuring ourselves out. And I kept on telling him for whatever reason, because there was no evidence this was going to happen. I'm like, I met this Indian girl. I think I'm going to marry her. We'll see what happens when we get back. Let me point out to you, I hadn't received a message or anything. I just had a hunch. I had a drunken hunch. So on that trip to the US, I fucked myself up so bad, drinking and taking drugs and doing whatever. I was at the end of the line. I couldn't do any more. So about midway through that trip, I promised myself when I get home, when I get back to Australia, that I'm going to quit alcohol for a year. I need to figure out who the fuck I am. I'm fucked. So the trip finishes. I get back to Australia and I decided I'm going to give up alcohol for a year on my nana's birthday, which was October 19. And there was about 2 weeks to go till October 19. And I was like, all right, I might as well go hard until October 19. Then 2 days after I'm back, I'm out at the pub with, coincidentally, Jake again and Horn. And I get this message and all it says is this David? And I sent back, is this the Indian girl? I didn't know it was her. I didn't have her number. It was a hunch. Some things you just know. Some things you can feel. Use your intuition. And she was shocked and I wasn't really shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I was like, fuck, if she had sent that message any time in the last 3 months, it just would have gone into the ether and disappeared forever. And she would have thought I just didn't reply to the message. And I asked her later, I'm like, did I ever mention I was going overseas? She's like, no. And I'm like, what took you so long to message me? She's like, I was just tossing it around in my head for that long. Like, it was fucking like 5 months. Even 4 days. If you sent that 4 or 5 days earlier, it would have just ended up some digital code in the ether. Serendipity, I think it's called. And so we started talking back and forth. And she's like, we should meet up. And I'm like, listen, I 100% want to meet up with you, but I'm quitting drinking in about 12 days. And I don't want to meet you while I'm still drinking. I've promised my nana that I would give up drinking for a year, which wasn't the truth. I quit drinking because I thought I was going to die. But my quitting alcohol was on my grandma's birthday, so I just said that. So I'm like, if you can just wait 12 days, I want to meet you as a sober person. So at midnight on the 19th of October, I was at my dad's. My grandma was there. We were all having a party. And I put down the beer I was drinking. I think I sculled it, maybe. And I quit drinking then. And then 2 days later, I went on a date with your mum. Sober. The first sober interaction of any significance I had had since I was about 14. And I was nervous as fuck. I was like shaking and sweating. If there was a time I was going to start drinking again, that was the time. 2 days in. So we met up. She was just as beautiful as I remembered. We went into the bar. She drank and tried to force me to drink the whole night. I just sat there sober, talking and being awkward and nervous and fucked. And I think it's possible she may have saved my life. I don't know if I would have stayed sober, but I stayed sober for 14 months because I didn't want to fuck up that relationship. So for the first 14 months we were together, I was completely sober. It was actually your mother who convinced me to start drinking again. And boy, did she regret that. Oh, boy, did she regret that. But that's how I met your mother. And if I'm dead and you're listening to this, go give her a kiss. Tell her I love her. I love you too. You're my son. You'll always be my son. And I'll see you on the other side.